Shabbat Shalom. Our Parsha, Lekh begins with a divine revelation, prophetic revelation to Avraham, Lekh mi'atzecha el eretz asher eka. God tells Avraham to, get on the road. According to the way I think most people understand the Parsha, Avraham Avinu was stuck in Haran with his family, who were all idol worshippers. And then God sent him a message that he should get up and move to Eretz Yisrael. But if we look more closely at the parsha, and particularly in conjunction with the very end of the parsha Noach, the preceding parsha, we see that story, that understanding, is not very complete, because at the end of parsha Noach, we read, "Vayikach Terah et Avram beno ve'lot ve'et Sarai kalato vayitzu me'ok kasdim olechet eretz Canaan." So we see here two things that should perk our attention and see that we have to think a little more closely about what's going on. First, we see that Terah, Abraham's father, had already begun this journey westward, had already left wherever he was and headed in the direction of Eretz Canaan, though he ended up staying the rest of his life in Haran. And second, we see that Terah somehow was headed towards Eretz Canaan, Eretz Yisrael. But again, in our parsha, at the beginning of the parsha, Avram doesn't really know where he's going. Lekh, he knows where he's leaving. He knows, what he's leaving, where he's leaving, whom he's leaving, but he doesn't know exactly where he's going. God will show him the land. So, I'd like to take a look at these points and sort of flesh them out, help with, of course, a shiur of the Rav, Rabbi Soloveitchik, which is based on the Ramban, and as always, doing things, seeing things through the prism of my own interpretation. So to begin with, the idea of Terah having already begun this process, this journey of leaving the land of the idolaters, or Kasdim, and heading at least in the direction of Eretz Canaan. Again, Terah is famous or infamous among us as being a very fabrinta, a very fervent idol worshiper. He was actually in the idol business. He had a shop where he sold idols, and we all know the story which was actually a very ancient story, which one day Terah had to go somewhere in business, and he left Avram in charge of the shop. And when he came home, he found all the idols smashed. His entire inventory was lost. All the idols were like in pieces on the floor. He asked Avram what happened. Avram said, they got into an argument about which was the leading idol, which was the premier idol, which was the most powerful and the first in line. And the argument got violent, and they ended up smashing each other to bits. And Terah said, what kind of a story are you telling me? These are pieces of stone. How could they have done that? And Avram said to him, well, if they're pieces of stone, then why do you worship them? And Terah was so infuriated with his son's, disbelief, his son's mockery of idol worship, that he turned him into Nimrod, the cruel king, who would have killed Avraham. To have a father do this to his own son is really an extreme act. But now we see that Terah is taking Avram and the rest of his family and moving, leaving Or Kasdim, leaving those areas of idol worship and heading, at least in the right direction, of Eretz Canaan. And this leads the Ramban to hint, and others to hint, and the Rav to develop much more deeply, that Terah was the Baal Teshuvah. Terah did a complete flip-flop, which doesn't sound very nice, but he completely changed his attitude and his belief system, and he realized that his son Avram was right and he was wrong, and he decided to leave, take his family and leave. And even those Meforshim, those commentators who don't interpret the story at the end of Noach that way, like Rashi says that when it says that Vayama Terach b'Charan, Terach died in Haran, and we know according to biblical chronology that Terach actually lived a very long time after Avram left Haran. Rashi says, well, we have a Jewish tradition that evil people are considered dead even while they're still alive. So he was, for all spiritual purposes, dead already. But Rashi has to address something that happens in our parsha, lekh, when in the Brit Ben Batarim, this famous, crucial central covenant between God and Abraham, and God tells Abraham that your descendants will go down to exile and suffer there, but you don't have to worry about avotecha b'shalom. You will die in peace. But the biblical euphemism, avotecha, you'll join your forefathers or your fathers. Rashi says, how could this be when Terach was an idol worshiper? Rashi says, Aviv oved avodah zara avu mavasro shavo elav. His father was an idol worshiper, and God's making him this wonderful promise that you will join him. And Rashi goes on to say, Lemedecha she'asa Terach Teshuvah. So Rashi here is forced to admit that Terach did Teshuvah. So much for this story. Terach did Teshuvah, and Terach began the journey out of Or Kasdim in the direction of Eretz Yisrael. But what about the direction? Even though the Torah tells us that Terach headed in the direction of Eretz Canaan, of Eretz Yisrael, we don't know. Abraham was told lekh likha with no indication of where to go. And by the way, the Rav makes here a very interesting, strange point. I find it strange. I find it fascinating that there was a certain synchronization that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, Mikadma Dinan, in his eternal divine will, had decided to reveal himself to Abraham and tell Abraham to leave and head to the promised land, wherever that may be. But Kaviyachol waited until Terach, on his own initiative, left. Terach was not a prophet. Terach received no divine revelation. He left on his own initiative. But once Terach had left and begun to move heading towards the promised land, then Avram got his revelation. But how did Abraham know where to go? In fact, he didn't at the beginning. The Midrash, the Ramban says that he was noded migoyel goy. He would go from one place to another. He wasn't sure where to go. God told him, move, get on the road, start traveling. He didn't know exactly where. God didn't say where. And Rashi too says that later on, again in the next week's parsha, when Avram has to explain to Elimelech, the king of the Philistines, why he told him this sort of white lie, about Sarah being his sister. He brings the talk by saying that that when God caused me to wander from my father's house, and I was going from place to place, then and I knew that I would end up one way or another in places with evil people who would put their eyes on my wife. So I made this deal with her that if we get to a place like that, I'll say that you're my sister. But what's this hitu? From the word in Hebrew that means to cause someone to wander. To'ek oved is a verse, a phrase from Tehillim, wandering like a lost sheep. God caused him to wander. Abraham did not know exactly where to go. And he kept wandering until he finally came to Eretz Yisrael, and then God said to him, this is the place. The Rav says that people with a spiritual quest, with a thirst to come close to God, have an internal sense of kedusha. We can have an internal sense that leads us without any conscious direction of liberation and direction of kedusha. This is all people. It's not something that's particularly Jewish. Terah had it. Terah already was sensed that he should be heading in the direction of Eretz Canaan. It's almost an animal instinct, and which is why the Rav says that David HaMelech makes the analogy, Kayal ta'arog al pilgemayim, ken nafshi ta'arog alech Hashem. Why does he compare his own thirst for God to a gazelle looking out, heading in the direction of a spring? Because the animals in the late afternoon or whenever that's the time that they do it, they have almost an instinctive urge and sense where the water is, and they all go and head towards the water. So also the person who seeks holiness, kedusha, who seeks purity, who seeks to become close to God, has a sort of some inner direction that leads him there. He may or she may wander a bit and get lost a bit on the way, but we keep trying, we keep looking for it, and we finally, eventually find the place of Kedusha, Eretz Yisrael, the Jewish homeland, that the promised land promised to the Jewish people. Then we know that we're there, we know that we found Kedusha. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for listening and watching.